What's going on, guys? I'm Mike Sabo, and today we're going to build this TRX450R engine. Now, this particular engine was removed from a 2004, so that's going to be the first generation, which was 2004 to 2005, but a lot of the components of this engine are going to be shared with the 2006 to 2014 TRX450R and TRX450ER, which is the electric start version. Before I get started with the tutorial, I always like to give the disclaimer that I am not a certified technician. I did not go to a trade school or anything like that. I've learned all of my knowledge on small engines basically through 20 years of experience of building engines, reading technical books, and also reading through service manuals. I will typically read through a service manual from cover to cover before I build the engine, and you just learn a lot over the years. But if I can make a recommendation, I would use this video for reference. Get yourself a service manual and use them side by side. Now, speaking of the manual, for this video, in the top right corner of the screen, I will have the section of the OEM Honda service manual that you can refer to if you want to follow along. There are other service manuals that you can use as well, such as Climbers, but for this one, we're going to use the Honda OEM. I'll also have in the description below chapters so that you can jump to different sections of the video. I understand that not everybody's going to watch the video from start to finish, so if there's a specific section that you want to jump to see how it's done, that'll all be in the description below. Now, we're going to build this right here in the home garage. If we can get away with it, we're not going to use any special tools. We're not going to use an engine jig or anything like that, because I understand that most people building stuff at home, they're not going to have those tools anyways. So we're going to try to get this done in the simplest way possible. That being said, there are going to be some special tools that I use, and those will all be linked in the description below if you'd like to purchase those. And one last thing before we get started, if you enjoy this video or it helps you in any way, shape, or form, please to give the video a thumbs up, and also consider subscribing for more videos like this. That helps me out tremendously. I put a ton of time into these videos. If you want to see where this engine came from, it was removed from a basket case 2004 TRX450R. I have an entire build series where you can see what this thing looked like when we first got it and then what we transform it into. It's a pretty sick series, and I highly recommend you check it out. Now let's get into building this thing. I have all of my parts laid out. Mostly all the parts on this bench are from the original engine. The cases were vapor blasted by Motoblast, and all of the hardware was zinc coated by Motoblast as well. The powder coating on the cam cover was done by Bonehead Performance, and all OEM parts were sourced from Partzilla.com and Power Sports Nation. If you hang tight till the end of this video, you will get to see this engine run. All right, guys, let's get to building this thing. Now, I wanted to show you guys, this is how I typically do my setup. So this is usually the smaller tray goes over here, and I have everything that is going to go into the center cases. The only thing that's not on here is the gasket, and if I forget the gasket, man, I don't know. But basically everything else is there. I've even got the little cylinder dowels, and also the center case bolts. That's one thing that's not on here. Usually I'll even get those out, put some ANICs on them. And the big reason that I like to do this is because it makes it a lot easier, a lot harder to forget a part. Okay, let's get started with our center cases. Before we start building, I want to give you guys a visual look of all of the setup that I did to these cases, including the seals and bearings and whatnot, because there are some shielded bearings, and these seals can go one way or the other, and sometimes looking in the service manual, it's a little confusing, and I also understand that some people just don't want to look in the service manual, or maybe they don't even have one. So let's take a look, and we will start with the left half case, just to give you a look at the way all of these seals go. You can see the flat side is facing upward on all of them. There are two small bearings that go in here for the oil pump. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. I think that's it. In the back, there is a little bushing that I actually pressed mine out and had it re-zinc coated. That's probably not going to have been removed when you do your cases, but I just wanted to mention that. Then up here, there is a seal for the shift arm, or the clutch arm, and there is also two bearings, little bearings that go down in there. Up top, we've got our two studs for our cylinder. If we come to the back, we've got one of our main bearings right here. If you come in here, there is our countershaft bearing. You can see there's two plates that hold it in place, and then there are two Phillips head screws. I like to replace these. They tend to get worn out, and I put a small amount of medium Loctite on them, and those just get tightened down by hand. You want to make sure that you use a JIS screwdriver when you do those. JIS stands for Japanese Industrial Standard. Then there is this real thin bearing in here that our shift drum sits in, and this bearing right here, which I believe has a shield on the other side. You want to make sure that the shield is facing inward and that this side you can see the bearings. One other thing is that there is a little jet right here. Chances are this will not have been removed, but you might want to pull that out and blow some air in it, make sure that the passage is nice and clear, and that gets just a small amount of high heat Loctite, super small amount, and then just snug that in place. If you haven't taken it out, just again make sure that that's there. Now moving on to the right case half, we'll start in the center. We have this main bearing here. You can see this one is different because it has the center that drops in place like that. That's going to go onto our crank. And if you come to the bearings in the back, this is how they all look. We have the shift drum bearing down here that has two small stay plates. These both get tightened down. All of these bolts with the stay plates, I use a little bit of blue Loctite. You want to go to about 7 foot-pounds on those. If we roll to the other side, you can see we've got all of our bearings in here. The shielded side faces outward, just the way that I have them on here. There's a small bearing here, and you also have a little plate right here. I believe this is the spring catch for the kick mechanism, which is going to go up here. A lot of times this won't have been removed, but if it was removed, this is how it goes. There's another small plate right here that goes in. All these bolts, I use just a small amount of medium Loctite. There's also a little pin right here for our shift mechanism. Chances are that won't have been removed, but if it was, that's where that goes. And I do put a little bit of medium Loctite on there. And then you've got our counterbalancer bearing up here. Same thing, there's two little plates, a little bit of medium Loctite on these, and tighten those down to around 7 foot-pounds. And here's our other crank seal, and you can see it goes with the flat face facing outward. Then of course you've got the two studs on this side and that same spacer that goes in the back on this portion of the case. And if you roll to the bottom of the engine, we have our drain bolt that does get a brand new crush washer. And I believe that is pretty much everything for setting up our case halves. All right, the first thing we're gonna do is drop our crankshaft in place. This is a brand new OEM crankshaft. Came right from partzilla.com. This is a stock stroke and it is a sweat fit on this side, so we're going to have to use a crank installation tool. Now we're going to take our crank and we're going to be going in with the side that has the gear on it. This is for our cam chain. That is going to be facing inward. Now sometimes what you can do is put the crank in the freezer and then take a torch and heat up the inner race of your bearing. And sometimes you don't even need a tool to install this. It'll just drop right in place. But I know not everybody's going to do that, so we're going to go ahead and use the tool to install it. So we'll push it in as far as it can go, which is right about there. And as we're pulling this in the whole time, you want to make sure that your connecting rod is facing upward where your piston's going to go. If you leave it hanging down like this, as you pull it in, it's going to get smashed up against the case. And you could actually ruin the crank if you keep pulling on it. Or at the least, you're going to have to pull the crank back out and then redo it with this connecting rod facing upward. I have made that mistake before. Now, depending what crank installer you have, if you have the Tusk one, at least mine does not have the correct adapter for the 450R, but that's okay. If you put the flywheel nut on there, you just have to inverse it with the washer portion facing upward. It actually fits in this tool perfectly. You want to make sure it's threaded down as far as you can go. You don't want to be on just 1 or 2 threads. You want to make sure, otherwise, you can actually rip those threads off. You're going to be pulling on those. So make sure that's good and snug. And then we'll take this adapter, and it's going to thread right over top. Okay. Now we've got this is like a cylinder, and if you can see, there's a little notch in it, and that notch is going to line up right here. Just have to line everything up. There we go. And then we're going to take these 2 crossbars, and they are going to go underneath. And we've got a nut that goes on top. That's going to apply pressure and pull that crank up as we tighten this down. And it's just going to hold against these bars. You want to take the bars and make sure they're on a portion of the case that looks like it's strong. Some of these, you know, it's real thin. It can kind of look a little scary to be pressing on the cases. You just want to make sure it's not like an extra thin part or anything like that. Right there should be good. All right, now as I tighten this down, you'll see this gap right here close up. Again, we're going to take the connecting rod and make sure that it's facing upward like that. And you want to make sure this is going in nice and smooth, because I'm doing this on an angle so you guys can see. If you put blocks of wood down on the bench and do this flat, you're more likely to pull the crank in nice and straight. When you do it like this, you know, you kind of have, it could go in a little bit crooked. It usually doesn't. Usually it goes in just fine, but I just wanted to mention that. So I'm going to hold this up, make sure that we keep that aligned, and we're just going to go ahead and gently pull in here. And as you're doing this, you might hear it creak a little bit, and it might even make little popping sounds. That's okay. Those are normal sounds. Mine doesn't seem to be making any sounds. Okay, and now I've reached a point where the connecting rod can't fall outside of where we want it. You can see we're getting close. We're just going to go until it bottoms out. Just about there. Okay, I think we're there. Looks good. Give it one little snug. Okay, yeah, we're definitely there. And now we'll just back this nut off. Then we can slide our tube off. Get rid of our bars. All right, I'm just going to clean off this excess lubricant that we have on here. Something I didn't mention is you do want to make sure that your inner lip of your seals, all of them, have lubricant on them before you install anything. So I did put lubricant on this one before pulling that crank in. Crank rolls over nice and smoothly. I think we're in good shape. We're gonna be putting the transmission in a second. First, I wanna put our oil pump rotors in, because if you forget to do this, you're gonna be kicking yourself. So there's an oil pump shaft right here. It goes with the splines facing downward. Then the top of this shaft is D-shaped, something to take note of. It's gonna go with the splines facing inward. It runs through two little bearings. Just drop that in place. Then we've got our inner rotor and we've got our outer rotor. You wanna make sure that these aren't grooved up. So you want to check the condition, make sure they're nice and smooth. Like if you look at the outside of this one, there's tiny little lines, but I can barely feel them with my thumbnail there. So you want this one should be okay, but if it's grooved up real bad, it's not going to work as efficiently as it should. All of this stuff, I've got a little bit of assembly lube on it. You don't want to put this in dry. I'm going to put some in the housing here too. And you just want to line up the D shape of the inner rotor with the shaft. That'll drop right in place. And then same thing, the outer rotor, it's just going to line that up with the inner rotor, and it'll drop in place like so. Okay, now we're going to get our transmission in here. Before we go any further, we're going to take some assembly lube and put it on our transmission bearings. Don't want this stuff to be dry for the first startup. And I wanted to show you guys the shift forks. There are 3 forks and they're all labeled. We've got all the markings on the side of the shift fork. We have the left one, which is indicated with the L. The middle one is indicated with M. And then this R, you can see it has an R on there. Also, you want to check the condition of these things. Make sure they're not grooved out or in really bad condition. Now, as far as your transmission goes, we're going to mesh this together and install. Oh, damn it. Well, you see what just happened right there? The 2 thrust washers fell off the end of our transmission, and I'm going to show you how to alleviate that from happening. I'm going to take some grease and put it on the face of this thrust washer. You can use a lot, it's not going to hurt anything. And then when we stick this on the transmission, that washer is not going to go anywhere. So when we slide this in and invert it, it can be a pain in the ass trying to hold that washer in place without having it just slide off. Before we slide the assembly in, we're going to take the countershaft. That's the one that goes in the back that the sprocket sits on. And we're going to take, we've got a thrust washer we're going to remove. You know what, I'm just going to bring that up with the gear because it's kind of tough. An inner sleeve and another thrust washer and one more gear. We're going to keep it just like this, and then we're going to take our left shift fork, the one with the L, and we're going to face it with this little pin facing this way, and we're going to put it right in here on our transmission shaft. We want to do this outside of the case. Before we do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of assembly lube in here. I do have a thin coat of oil on all of these gears already, but it's a good idea. You can never have too much lube. So it's going to go just like this, again with the pin facing this way. And then we're going to take our counter, or our main shaft, going to line this up like so. And we're just going to delicately install this as an assembly. You just want to make sure it drops in place. Mine did not drop in place. Oh, there it goes. Okay, that feels good. Now we're going to put our fifth gear in place. You're going to put it with the groove for the shift fork facing down. Just put this on here. You got to line it up with the gear on the main shaft and with the splines on the counter shaft. There we go, like that. Can be a little bit cumbersome. Then we have a small thrust washer. It has two little half moons in it. You see the two little half moons? That will slide on like so. Then we have our inner sleeve. Goes on like that. And then we have our, I believe this is first gear. We're going to put it on with the deeper groove facing downward. Line it up with the gear and that sleeve. It's going to go like that. And then we have a thrust washer. Goes on top like so. Then we have our center shift fork, the one that's got the C on there. And put some lubricant on the forks. And that's going to go over here into the little groove, and we're just going to open it up out to the side. We're going to put all of the shift forks out to the side. And then we have the one with the R for the right shift fork. This one is going to go in place on the counter shaft like that. And you want to make sure, again, the pin is facing where the drum is going to go right here. And you can see on the center one how that pin is facing like so. Now we'll take our shift drum. You want to inspect this, make sure it's not grooved out or damaged. And we're going to face it with this empty void facing downward and the little pin facing upward. Before I drop this in place, I'm just going to take a little bit of lube and put it in all of our channels. Don't have to go crazy with it, but again, you can really never have too much assembly lube. It can just make a freaking mess. And I'm going to drop this in place right into our little bearing. It might take a second. Be patient. You might have to pull up on your shift forks and line them up into the grooves of the shift drum. I have the one on the right side in place, and then I'm trying to see if I can do this without blocking you guys. This top one will be easy. You can see you can move the gear up and down, and you just slide it right into the groove. And then we have to do the same thing with the lower one. I might use a screwdriver here. See if we can just lift this gear up. There we go. locked in the groove. Now we'll pop the shift shafts in place. We've got a longer one and a shorter one. Shorter one goes on the right side, longer one goes on the left side. Put a little bit of assembly lube on these. They don't go in any particular direction. They're the same on both sides. And we'll just drop these in place. You might have to give them a little bit of encouragement to get everything lined up. And then there's a little depression in the case that this is going to pop into. Just take your time with this. Sometimes these things want to be stubborn. There we go. In. And same thing on this side. You can see that pin is in our shift drum. Got some lube on our pin. Just drop this in place. Line it up with the hole in the case. And we're in. We've got 2 dowel pins to put in place. I recommend using new dowel pins if you have them. They're really, really cheap. You can get them right from Partzilla. They're like $1 or $2 a piece. We've got one that goes in the front right here, and then another one that goes up top back here. Before we put these in place, we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize on them. Unless you really don't like the next person that's getting this engine, because then, you know, they might get seized and you could cause a huge problem for them. No, we're not going to do that though. We want to make sure that the next person that takes this engine apart, which will be never, because we're doing an amazing job rebuilding it, this is going to prevent these from getting seized in the cases, because if you've ever had seized dowels, it can be a freaking nightmare. So we'll just get a little bit of anti-seize on these. Okay. Now if you're using an OEM Honda gasket, you've got a connecting piece at the top. This is where the crank is going to be and the piston are going to be running. That needs to be cut. You can put the gasket on first, install the other case half, and then cut it. I'm going to cut it beforehand. You can do either way. It's just there to keep it from separating when you're installing the case halves. You just want to make sure that everything's lined up if you're going to cut it beforehand. So we're just going to cut that out. And I'm going to grease my gasket. So we've luckily do not have to deal with any case sealer like most other manufacturers. We've just got a gasket. Putting grease on the gasket is going to add a sealing effect and also makes it so that when this engine has to be broken down, it's less likely that the gasket will stick to the case surfaces, which is nice. You just want to be careful as you're doing this that you don't rip the gasket, because it's only being held together by one little piece now that we cut away that portion where the crank goes. So just like with everything with engine building, just take your time. And also, if I can make a recommendation, use OEM gaskets or Cometic. Maybe Athena, if they even make a bottom end gasket kit. Any other Chinese gaskets and stuff like that, it is not worth saving a few bucks on that. I'm telling you, they either leak, they don't line up right, or just get the OEM gaskets. They're the correct thickness, correct spec and everything. Don't want to hear you complaining if you don't get OEM gaskets and your shit doesn't go together right and it friggin' leaks. All right, so let's take our gasket and we'll lay it in place over our dowel pins. We're going to get the other case half prepared. Before we do that, we've got our inner sleeve for our crank. This is going to slide right over like so. You do not want to forget that, or you will have to split the cases again. I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on this sleeve. Now we have one more sleeve that goes on top, and this one is a little bit of an interference fit. We don't want to go smashing this in place because we'll throw our crank out of whack. So I'm going to throw this in the oven and heat it up, and that should expand this just enough to fit over our crank. You could also just use a torch. Should be a lot quicker. Hopefully this will just slide on now. Whew, man, that's hot as hell. Oh my gosh. Well, the heat didn't quite get the job done, but that's okay. Put a little bit of lube on our splines here. We're going to use the gears to pull it in place. So these gears will be going on once we put our case half on, but we're just going to put them in place now, and they will press against that sleeve. And we'll take this one up here, line it up. There's a little wider gap That goes where the dimple is, the punch mark on the crank. We'll put that in place. And then we're going to take our bolt and washer, and we'll start threading this in. You want to make sure that there's a good amount of threads. If you're on the edge like that, and you've only got a couple threads, that's not good. You want to make sure, you see we got plenty of threads, because you don't want to ruin this bolt. And we'll take a 17 millimeter, hold our crank so it doesn't spin, and this should bring it right down. Okay, we'll back it off. All right, good to go. And as you can see, threads have no damage at all. I just wanted to mention, in case you don't like that technique and you're wanting to put a socket on here and smash it down or something, you do not want to do that because you can throw your crank out of whack. Just wanted to mention that. Now we're going to prepare our right case half. I'm going to put some lube on our seals before we move any further. This is our crank seal up here. Just make sure you get some in there. Now I'm going to flip this over. We're going to put some lube on our bearings. And we've got this little reed valve. This is just going to get pressed in place right here. I'm putting a little bit of grease on the rubber seal. And you can't really mess it up. You see the one corner is a little bit more square than the others. And we're just going to push that in like that. It kind of clips into place. Make sure our gasket is nice and lined up. And now we can take our upper case half, line up our crank and our transmission shafts, and just gently drop this into place. Again, taking your time, don't force anything. You may have to roll the crank. Sometimes the inner sleeve of the crank bearing doesn't want to just slide right on. You got to roll it. Oh, there it goes. Man, that was satisfying. It looks like it's all the way down flush too. Nice. All right, now we're going to take our case halves. You want to make sure that they're good and flush. If for some reason they're not nice and tight and it's getting hung up on something, you want to split the cases, make sure you don't have any issues. You don't want to force these cases closed with the bolts. So we're going to go ahead and put our case bolts in place. We're going to start on the stator side. I believe most of the bolts go in on this side. There's a couple things we have to put in place. There's a little relief valve that's going to go in. Looks like this. You want to put a new O-ring on there. I'm going to put a little assembly lube on it. And it's going to go right in this little void here. And that just kind of pushes in place. There's a small plate that's going to hold that in place. And you're going to take one of the long case bolts. This is 75 millimeters long. And pop it right in there. And all these case bolts, I'm just going to run in place. I'm not tightening anything down just yet. You want to make sure this little stay plate is lined up. That's just going to hold that relief valve in place. I just wanted to mention that this bolt right here that has the little retainer for the relief valve, the manual does call for medium Loctite on that. And we've got an oil tube. I'm going to put a fresh O-ring on there. And again, this is a 75 millimeter bolt that's going to go through here. And it's going to go up top here, if we can get this to stay. And again, I'm just snugging these right now. Now we've got an oil strainer that's going to go in. If you guys can see the screen inside, you might not have to replace this. You can clean that if you flush either water through here and then blow it out really quickly so you don't get any rust, parts washer fluid, and then shoot some compressed air, and just visually inspect that screen, make sure it's not like totally trashed. There's a rubber grommet that goes on the outside. It's going to fit right in this little square orifice here. And then there's an O-ring on this side that goes right in place here. So we will line this up, pop the grommet into our case. And our O-ring over here. Just kind of pushes in like so. And then we've got a little stay plate here that's shaped like a U. And we're going to take a 50mm bolt. And I am putting anti-seize on all of these case bolts. And this will hold that oil tube in place. Just snugging it down. And then we have one more special piece that a case bolt's going to run through. It's a little stay, I believe, for a brake line. And we have a 75mm bolt that's going to go right back here. And then we're going to work our way around the perimeter here, get our bolts in place. If you're not sure where these bolts go, typically I'll just put them in place, and if they're sticking out too far, that means you got a bolt that's too long, and if they're going all the way in and not catching the threads, you've probably got one that's too short. You don't want to forget in here, you've got one that goes here. That is one of the shorter ones. And there is one more down here. This one's short also. The Honda service manual calls for 9 foot-pounds to torque these two. We're going to go in a crisscross pattern until all of them are tight. And when you are doing this, you want to make sure you're gripping at the handle. If you grip up here, it actually changes the torque value of the wrench. So just something to keep in mind. And then once you're done, it's a good idea to go around and just double check, make sure you didn't miss any. Then once you have all the bolts tightened down, it's a good idea to check, make sure your crank rolls freely, and check your counter shaft and your main shaft. Make sure everything is good and free. If there's a little bit of tightness, that's okay, like just a little bit. You know, when you have brand new seals and everything, sometimes things are a little tight, but it shouldn't be binding or anything like that. You can see how this one's moving nice and freely. This one actually is a little tight. Like I've had ones that are a little bit more free, but it's not anything that's concerning. I just wanted to mention sometimes they do have just a little bit of tightness. If there is tightness and it's binding up, you want to go back to the drawing board. You might have to split the cases, make sure that you didn't forget anything, or, your engine might like blow up or something. Now we can take a razor and just shear off the excess gasket material. I'm gonna try not to score up the cases when you're doing this. While we're over here, we're gonna put our collar on the counter shaft. I'm gonna take my screwdriver with a little bit of grease and just make sure we've got lube on the inner lip of our seal. And here's our collar. This is the original one. Had it zinc coated by Motoblast. And you can see the one side has a little depression. That's where our new seal is gonna go. So we can take the seal and slide it onto our counter shaft. And then we'll take the collar, put that on, and just gently push that into place. Make sure the seal didn't roll. That looks good. All right, and with that, our center cases are done. Okay, let's get moving with our stator side. Got a brand new cam chain right here. I highly recommend either a Honda OEM or one like this, which is, I believe it's a KMC. Yes. This is a hot cams cam, but you can see they're made by KMC. Just don't use one of the knockoff Chinese ones. It's just not worth it, man. Spend a few dollars. This is like 40 bucks, and it kind of smells like a train set. So we're gonna drop this in place. Just comes right on through the top, and it'll go right around our crankshaft. We'll pull up on that, get the slack out of it, and just kind of hang it over the front. And then we've got our cam chain slider. There's a small sleeve that goes on the back side like that. So we'll just drop this in place. And it's going to bolt up right here. The service manual does call for a small amount of thread lock. This is medium strength. This is going to go to 9 foot-pounds. Then we've got a little guide plate that's going to go in place. You can see the way that this goes. it has a little stay right here on the case. So we'll just pop this in place, and it's going to press in on this rubber grommet back here, hold all that stuff in place. And this one is getting anti-seize. And this will get tightened to 9 foot-pounds as well. Then down here we've got a small oil pump gear. Just slide that on our splines. And then there is a little retaining clip, which I recommend getting a new one. This is a really small, flimsy clip. And when you take off the old one, chances are you stretched it out. I don't actually have the right snap ring pliers for this. You really need little tiny precision ones. I should be able to get these ones to work. It just might be a little bit cumbersome. We might actually just be able to stretch it on with our fingers. I remember getting this thing off was a bastard too. You'd think I would have ordered the right tool by now, but you know, I forgot. Okay. Got lucky. All right, you want to make sure that it is clipped entirely in the groove. You don't want that thing popping off. Now our balancer is going to go right in here. I'm going to take a little bit of grease and make sure that the inner lip of our seal has got some on it. I'm going to see if we can get a little bit of assembly lube on our bearing inside. And here's our counterbalancer. We're going to go in with this side first. It doesn't need to be timed. It just can pop in any orientation. Slide it right on through here. Just make sure you don't roll the lip of your seal. Then line it up with that little gear that we just put in. All right. Now we're going to put our flywheel in place. We've got a little half moon. This is our key. You want to face it with the curved portion facing downward into our crank. We'll place that in like so. Then we've got our flywheel. I want to make sure that your tapered surface and the inside of the flywheel are nice and clean. Don't put lubricant on those. I used to make the mistake of doing that, but these go on dry. I'll just line up that key, and it drops in place like so. The manual calls for a little bit of oil on the threads and the flat surface of the flywheel. So I'm just going to put a little bit of our assembly lube oil on there. Put our washer back on there, and we've got our flywheel nut. Now if you want, you could blast that on with an impact driver and you'll probably be okay. You just want to hold your crank from rocking around like crazy and just, you know, give it a few blasts with a powerful impact and you should be good. This gets torqued to 54 foot-pounds. If you're like me, you like to torque things to spec. So we're just going to lay this engine down like that. How we're going to hold this from rotating, let's pull up our cam chain so it doesn't get bound up, and we're going to rotate it counterclockwise so that it's on the downward stroke in the counterclockwise direction. And I'm going to take this heavy-duty steel tie rod. You want to find something that's about the same inner diameter of your crank, and we're just going to have this pull down. We want to make sure that we're not interfering with anything. We don't want to cause any damage. That should be good, and with that in there, that's going to prevent the flywheel from turning as we tighten it down. You don't have to worry about these surfaces. It's not going to damage anything unless you use like a really thin rod or something, but that would bend anyways. But something like this is going to be just fine. And we're going to torque this to 54 foot-pounds. And as always, you want to make sure you're gripping your torque wrench at the handle as you're doing this. And we're going to try to find a good way to hold on to our cases here so that they don't spin on us. Okay, and we are torqued down. Then we can just take this bar, slide it on out, no damage. Now we're going to set up our stator cover. Man, that thing just looks awesome. On the back side, you want to make sure there is a seal that goes in place here with a little washer that goes on top. You can actually see the seal. If you see those little blobs, those are little, that's grease actually. It comes on the seal. So the lip comes pre-lubricated. When you put the seal in, you put that in so that you can see the flat face of the seal. Then a little washer goes on top, and then you can see there is a circlip that goes in after that. If you need to replace your sight glass, You can push this out. In fact, I removed mine before I had this Cerakoted. It's got a rubber seal on it, and then you just push it back in place. You can use a socket to push that in nice and flush. And you also want to make sure that your mating surface is good and flush. I put mine on the surfacing table. So we'll put this down on our microfiber so we don't get that nice surface all scratched up. Then we're going to take our stator, and we just need to orient this correctly. It will face with the wires on the bottom, and it's going to be coming through this little cutaway right here. Just want to line this up with the mounting holes, and we can take our grommet and actually put it in place. That should help kind of line everything up. It'll go just like that with the wire between these two bolt holes. And we've got 3 bolts that go in here. The service manual does not call for any thread locker, but I like to put just a tiny bit on my stator bolts. This is the low strength. Oh, this is medium. I actually meant to use the low strength, but the medium is okay. Just put a very small amount on there. Just a little bit of safety measure so that these things don't back out, because that would be bad. And these get torqued to 7 foot-pounds. Then we've got our pickup. This is going to get placed like so, with the little pickup facing your flywheel or your stator, and it's going to go just like that. And just like with the other bolts, I'm going to put a very small amount of thread lock. Now this one I actually do have the low strength because these are little M5s, very small, but this is like critical that this stuff stays in position. I mean, everything on an engine kind of is, but you just want to make sure that this stuff doesn't go anywhere, but we also don't want it to be impossible to remove if for some reason we have to replace something. And these are M5s, they're metric, but I found that a little 5/16 fits the bolt heads on these a little bit nicer. We're going to bring this one side down and just give it a little snug, and then we're actually going to pull this side back out now that this is in place. And there's a little stay plate that's going to help keep our cable nice and safe from the spinning flywheel. And that is going to share this one bolt hole for the pickup. And then there's one more. It goes over here. And the service manual calls for 3.6 foot-pounds on these. I'm just going to snug them up by hand. That should be good. Then we've got 2 dowel pins. We're going to put a little bit of anti-seize on them. And they are going to go one in the back right here. And then there's a second one that goes up front here. Then we've got our fresh OEM gasket. I'm going to go ahead and grease it up. Then we can go ahead and line this up with our dowel pins and hang it right on them. Now we can take our cover and just drop it on in place. It might get kind of sucked in place because it is magnetic, so just be prepared for that. Just want to line everything up here. Oh, you can see it kind of sucked it in place there. Okay. There we go, good and flush. Man, that cover, the color looks sick. Now I put anti-seize on all these bolts. Best way to do this is to fan them all out like this and just give them a quick little right down the line. You don't need a shitload of anti-seize on these things. But I used to do them like one at a time. It would kind of take forever. And you do it like that and you're good to go. All right, let's drop our bolts in place. All of these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about figuring that out. There is one cable stay that goes up here. Just going to start dropping these in place. Honda calls for 9 foot-pounds on these. We're going to tighten them in a crisscross pattern. Then I'm just going to go around the perimeter one more time, make sure we didn't miss any. Then we'll come up here, we've got our little inspection window. You want to make sure you've got a good O-ring on there. I put a little bit of grease on the O-ring as well. We're going to be pulling this back off to adjust the timing later, so I'm just going to snug that down. And of course we've got our oil plug. Now we're going to put our oil filter in. Got a little spring that's going to go in first. You'll see there's a little dimple inside. The spring actually rests right on that dimple. And I've got a brand new oil filter, brand new Honda one. This came right from partzilla.com. We're going to take this, and you can see there is a rubber portion up top, and then a portion that does not have any holes in it. It's just a regular kind of depression. That's the side that's going to go inward. Rubber portion is going to face outward. I'm just going to take this, slide it in like that. Then we've got our oil pump cover. You do have an O-ring on here. You want to make sure you got a fresh one on there. Put a little bit of grease on it, and we will line these two little ports up. There's a little hole here and a little hole here. Make sure they're facing in the right orientation. I don't think you can actually put this on incorrectly. And it'll kind of pop in place on that oil filter. We've got a long bolt that goes on this side, and then a shorter bolt that goes on the inside. And these ones, I'm going to go to 7.5 foot-pounds. All right. Now let's put our sprocket in place. We've got a brand new Super Sprox. I just thought the bag looked really cool, and I don't know. I just thought it was premium, so I figured I'd open it up with you guys. I think we're going to need some scissors here. I'm going to put a little bit of anti-seize on our splines so that this thing doesn't get seized on here, because that can happen with sprockets. And we're running a 14 tooth. We're going to place it with the raised portion facing outward. You can see on the back it's got like a sunken portion. Just line up our splines, drops in place. And we've got a large washer here. It's got a little bit of a concave to it. You can see it says outside. I'm going to put a little bit of high strength thread locker on here. We do not want our sprocket bolt coming off. Or maybe you do. I don't know. I don't want to be speaking for you, you know. And this will get tightened to 23 foot-pounds. If you don't want to tighten it right now, you can tighten it up once the engine's in the frame and the chain's on there with this clutch tool. Makes it really easy. Okay. I like to do it now because I have forgotten to tighten it up once I get the engine and everything in there and the chain. It's never good. Now we've got a TM Designs case saver we're going to put on here. The OEM one, I think, is a steel one, and then it's got like a plastic kind of guard that goes over. It's really a mud guard. It's not going to protect anything. I did notice that the factory hardware that comes with these TM Designs, it's too short. I mean, it would work, but I'd be afraid it'd strip out the case. Just not good. So I used the spec bolt kit and use hardware that's just a little bit longer. Putting a little bit of anti-seize on these. And I noticed this has to be flexed just a little bit to get it to fit. And I think that's so that it's pressing right up against the case. Now this plastic has a little bit of flex in it, so it might be hard to torque them down. So I'm just going to snug these down by hand. It should be good. And our stator side is done. All right, let's get this engine turned around and move to the clutch side. All right, let's get started with our external shift mechanism. We're going to start by putting our shift stopper in place. Got a little rolling detent on here. I'm going to make sure that that's nice and smooth. It's not warped or not bent or anything, because these things can sometimes get out of whack, especially with an engine like this, which was run with no oil. So you want to make sure that all that stuff is good. We've got a little bolt here with a shelf on it. That's going to go in like so. It'll fit in the larger groove right where that shelf is. And then on this end, we've got a washer. And that's going to go on like so. Can't make up my mind which way it was supposed to go there. And then we've got a spring here with a hook. This is going to go in like so. If you look at the bottom of the arm, you can see there's a little spot right there for this spring to catch. So it's going to go just like so with the spring catch. And we're going to go right in our cases here and thread in our bolt. I'm trying to do this so you guys can see. I'm just going to bring this in by hand. And as you're doing this, just try to be careful not to get the shelf caught up on the detent arm. When that's all tight, this detent arm should still move nice and freely. We're going to tighten this up to 9 foot-pounds. So this is how that should look. You can see the leg of the spring is up against the case in here. All right, now we're going to install our shift drum center, or as I like to call it, the shift star. If you look in the back, there is a little cutaway here, and that's going to match up with this little pin here on the shift drum. That pin can come out, so if it's missing, you want to make sure it's in there. Usually they don't come out, and when people rebuild the engine and stuff, they stay in there. Just make sure that's there, and we're going to line that up here. Now this shift arm is in the way. You could try to do this with your fingers. That might be a little bit tough. So actually, in the manual, it shows you to use a flathead screwdriver, just like so. So we can take our shift drum center and just match up the bottom with that pin, and you can take the tension off of the arm, but you need to keep pressure on that detent, and you want to make sure that you've got a little bit of Loctite on the center bolt and pin. I already applied a little bit on mine, just some medium Loctite. I'm going to put that in the center like that and run it in with our impact driver. Not tight, just running it in. We're going to tighten this to 16 foot-pounds. The entire assembly may rotate, and if it does, that's fine. Just wait until it shifts all the way to the top gear, and then it will hold itself. All right, we're good to go. All right, now we're going to put our shift ratchet system in. You can see how this looks when it's all together. I'm going to take this apart with you guys, and then we'll put it back together. It's a little bit delicate. You've got these two little kind of like flaps. They're called shift pawls, and they fit in like this. Now you can see, before I take this apart, that there's a little groove on each of those. And there is a little spring and plunger on each side, and you can see how the little groove is offset. It needs to be lined up just like this. So we'll take one of these out. We've got the little plunger and a spring, and that spring can come out. These things, if you've ever done one of these and they spring apart, it's really easy to lose these pieces and just make for a really bad day. So you can see also at the bottom of these, it's rounded, and the top it's more squared. So the rounded portion goes in with that notch again facing where the little plungers are. The other side is the same, just on the opposite side. So we're going to put that together, hold it in place like so, make sure it operates nice and smoothly. All right, now we're going to take that ratcheting assembly that we just put together, and we're going to put it in our retaining plate. Now, again, make sure that up is facing towards you. You don't want it to go this way. So this will fish through. I'm going to come around the back here, just being careful not to lose our springs. We're going to hold it like this, and it will fish through like so. And I'm going to try my best here to squeeze those springs from the opposite side. See if I can get that in focus there. And we're going to come on in and just place it into our shift drum, doing our best not to let those springs fly out. I think the one needs to be pushed in a little bit. I let go a little too soon. It's okay, they'll use a little screwdriver here. And I can spin this like so, and we're in. You just want to take a good look at it, make sure your pawls didn't come out or anything. Plate is sitting nice and flush up against your case. If for some reason you didn't get the shift drum center sitting flush, this plate won't sit flat against your cases. And if that's the case, take it back apart and do it again. And then we've got 2 bolts. These both get a little bit of medium Loctite. Now I'm going to tighten these to 7.5 foot-pounds. Okay, and then right here on this pin, we've got a little top hat. I'm going to put that on like so. All right, now we're going to put our shift shaft in place. You want to make sure this is good and straight and that your splines are good on the end. And there is a thrust washer that's going to go on first. Put a little bit of assembly lube on the shaft. And make sure this is going to go through the cases and come out the other side through your seal. You want to make sure that seal has some grease on the inner lip. I'm just going to go ahead and push this on through. And take it nice and easy so you don't roll the lip of the seal that it pops through on the other side. And as we're coming through here, we've got the little pin here that pops between the 2 spring legs, and then the top hat is going to pop through right there. Okay, let's move into our kickstart assembly. We're going to start with our idle gear. That's going to go right here. There is a little sleeve here. It's got a raised portion on one side. It's going to go into the gear like so. Put a little bit of assembly lube on here. And drop this gear in place. There is no clip or anything that goes on here. Kind of an interesting system. There is a stopper plate that goes right here. And as you can see, that's going to prevent the gear from falling off. I put a little bit of medium Loctite on this bolt. This will get tightened to 9 foot-pounds. Then we've got another idle gear, and I don't believe that this is intended to be disassembled. If you look at it, there's a thrust washer on each end. There is a clip. If you were to take that apart, it could come apart, but I believe this is supposed to stay together as a unit. We'll put the 1 thrust washer on, and we've got another thrust washer that goes on the outside. It's going to go right in this bearing here. I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube in there. And we'll pop this in place, make sure that washer stays on the back. Okay. All right, now chances are your Kickstarter will not have been disassembled, but if you do have to put it together, we're going to put it together now. So this is our shaft. The outside, this is where your actual Kickstarter goes, and this is the side that goes into the case. Now I've already got 1 thrust washer and a clip on there, and we're going to start on this side. We've got this gear with the small ratcheting gears on the back. That's going to face inward. Put it on the shaft like so. Then we've got a little thrust washer. That's going to go next. Then we have our spring. There's a little tang on the inside. We're going to feed that into this, the hole closest to the gear. So we'll just feed this on here and line that up with that second hole. Then we have a collar that has a space in it, and that space is going to line up with the tang on that spring. That'll keep it in place. Then we're going to come to the back, and we've got the catch for the kicker. We're going to slide this onto our splines. We're going to face the ratcheting gears towards the ratcheting gears on this gear. And if you look at the shaft, there's a little punch mark, and then there's a punch mark on our gear as well. You can see it right there. We want to line those up when you slide it on, just like that. And then the last thing we have is this spring that's going to go right on the back in this little groove, and that is our kicker assembly. Now to install this, we're going to take this thrust washer off of the idle gear, and we're going to put it in this orientation with the spring going in first. You want to get some assembly lube in the case before you place this in, and we're going to put our little catch facing upward and just slide this into the case. And then we're going to take our spring using a pair of pliers and push it into this little hole in the case. And once that is good and flush, we can take that thrust washer and put it back on the idle gear, and we're installed. Now we're going to come to our balancer and balancer driven gear. We're going to start with the balancer driven gear. There's a little rectangular key. It's going to go right into the shaft of the balancer. Place that like so. Then we've got the driven gear that's going to slide in place. Just have to line up that key. If we can get it on there. There we go. Then we've got our balancer drive gear. This is going to go with the raised portion facing outward. The other way to identify which way this gear goes, if you look at the outside, there's a dimple on it. Right here, a little punch mark. That is going to line up with these dimples right here. This dimple right here will go right in between these two dimples on the driven gear. And to line it up on our crank, you'll see there's a dimple right here. That is going to go where the splines are missing. Right here, you can see there's like an extra wide area. That is going to line up like so. Get that in place. And then we're going to take our dimple right here. We just have to roll it around until it mates up with our dimple marks on the other side. If your crank gets stuck, it could be because on the other side, your cam chain, just want to take the slack out of that if you can. We're going to roll this. Oh, and there we go. Oh, pull this off a little bit. And there we go. And then we've got another weight for the balancer. It's going to go in this orientation. It lines up with the key mark on the balancer. Can't really screw it up. Then we've got a washer. Now we have a special nut here that has a little lip all the way around the top, and we're going to have to punch it right against this flat portion on the counterbalancer. So I went ahead and got a new. You could probably get away with using the same one. I went ahead and bought a new one right from Honda. They're like $4. So I definitely recommend getting a fresh one of these. They want you to put a little bit of oil on the threads. We'll spin this down. Now this nut gets torqued down to 47 foot-pounds, and there is a special socket for this. However, I don't have the socket, so we can use a spanner wrench, and we're just going to make it good and snug. And it's going to be, we're going to have the same problem as before with spinning. So we're going to do the same thing that we did. And you can see when you spin this in the clockwise direction, it turns the crank in the counterclockwise direction. So we're just going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to take the slack out of our cam chain as we're turning this over, and we're going to spin this in the direction that we're tightening. And you can see the crank is headed downward over here. I'm going to take that heavy duty tie rod, same one we used before, and just sneak it in here. And we can put our chain over the top like so. Now I was able to take my Motion Pro wrench adapter and fit the spanner wrench onto here. If you do use this same method, you want to make sure that the wrench is at a 90-degree angle from the head of the wrench. That's going to keep the correct torque value. If you were to make it come straight out in front, you're actually lengthening the wrench, and that'll increase the torque value. So you want to make sure it's at that 45-degree angle. So let's go ahead and see if we can't torque this thing down. Got it set to 47 foot-pounds. All right, not bad. I'm going to leave the tie rod for now because we're going to use the same technique to tighten down the bolt that goes onto our crankshaft. Before we do that, let's go right here where our little flat spot is. We'll take a punch, and we're just going to flatten out this little spot here. And that's going to prevent this nut from backing off. That should be good. It doesn't have to be crazy. Now we'll put our primary drive gear in place. It goes with the punch marks facing outward. And you can see, just like that other gear, there is a little space right here. That's going to line up with the punch mark on the crankshaft. Go ahead and get that in place like so. Now we've got a large bolt and a thick washer. We're going to put a little bit of oil onto the threads of our bolt. Slide the washer on and thread this in place. And just like before, we're going to take our cam chain, get the slack out of it, and we're going to roll this until it bottoms out on the cases, right like that. And this is going to get torqued to 80 foot-pounds. All right, you might need a buddy to hold that engine because unless you're jacked like me, it is actually kind of tough to hold it in place. Now we can remove our tie rod and we're good to go. Before we move into the clutch, we're gonna take all of our components and just soak them in oil. I'm gonna be using AMSOIL 10 weight 50 dirt bike oil for this. We're gonna do the fibers, and we're also going to do this, which is the EXP plate. That is the special sauce for the Rekluse pack. All right, now we're gonna move on to installing the clutch. For this particular engine, we're gonna be installing a Rekluse clutch. So it's gonna be a little bit different than your traditional style clutch. In the description of this video, in the timestamps, if you go down to the clutch section, I will have a link to another one of my videos that shows how to do a traditional clutch install. But for this video, we're gonna be installing the Rekluse Radius CX 4.0 clutch. All right, first thing to go on is a sleeve. I'm gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on our main shaft. Get that on there. And then I've got a brand new bearing. Same thing, put a little bit of lube on there. Slide this in place. Just spin it around, get the lube on it. And once again, I put a little bit more lube. And slide our brand new billet basket and primary drive gear. We're gonna have to line this up with our gear. Make sure everything goes on nice and smooth. There we go. And we've got this real thick washer. Now we're gonna put our inner hub in place. This is a brand new hub. Sometimes these are super tight tolerances. Man, that one's really tight. Now with this Rekluse setup, we've got a special locking washer that's going to go with these two little tangs facing downward into these holes. Nice little place keepers. And we've got our center locking nut. We're going to put it with the lip facing upwards. Now we're going to use our clutch holding tool to tighten this thing down. We're going to use the side with the two pins, and they're going to hold the inner clutch. Doesn't need to be super tight on here. It's more of stopping it from spinning this way and not needing to clamp down like this. We're gonna use the bench as our friend. Put that right up against the bench. And we're gonna tighten this nut down to 80 foot-pounds. And having this up against the bench is gonna make it so that it's a lot easier to tighten this. Is that tight? Sorry guys, but it's a lot easier if I get in your way here. Okay, that's all good and tight. Pop off our holding tool. And our locking tabs are conveniently located right at the peaks of our nut, but you know what? It's okay. I hate these stupid locking tabs, if I'm being honest. I'm just going to take a channel lock here. Oh, I don't want to scratch up my inner hub. Like anybody really cares, right? Nobody's even going to see this. But, oh, you know me, guys. Okay, and we'll see if we can bend it on both sides. Like that. So that will not come off. And then I'm going to leave this other side like that so that if I ever have to take this off, I'll have a second use. Now in this Rekluse clutch pack, we've got a couple special plates. We've got this one, which is a half thickness. If we compare it to one of the regular ones, you can see the difference. The fibers have a different pattern, and you can see it's about half the thickness of this other fiber. So we're gonna set the half one aside. And then we've also got a steel that's a little bit different. If you look at the outside, it's not perfectly round. Whereas if you look at the normal steels, these are perfectly round on the outside. You can see those little kind of waviness to the outside. We're gonna set this plate aside as well. And before we start dropping in place the plates and steels, we've got these little stainless inserts. These are gonna go around the clutch basket, and it's gonna make the clutch basket last a lot longer. They can be kind of difficult to get in place. It's really, really tight tolerances. Just going to slide them in, and if they stick up just a little bit like this, or if they're a little bit below, depending on which model you have, that is normal. So we're just going to go around and put these in. Okay, all the plates are in. Now we're going to take a normal steel with the round edge and drop it in place. This might have really tight tolerances, so just take your time. There's one. And next we're going to put in the EXP fiber. This is the special one. And we're just going to take our time here, again, because these tolerances are so tight. Okay. And then we're going to put another steel in. Regular fiber. Now once you've got all of the regular fibers and regular steels in place, we're going to go ahead and put that half fiber in. Okay. And then Rekluse wants you to use the factory judder spring. You don't have to, but this is supposed to make the clutch run a lot quieter. And they want it with the dish portion facing upward. So we'll put that on the inside like so. And then we're going to put that last steel, this is the one with the wavy edge, right on top. Now there's an internal and external way to adjust this clutch. Now each one of them has their own benefits, but I'm not going to go into the specifics and breakdown of this clutch, but we're just going to set this up for the base adjustment on the interior. There's a ring on the inside here, and that's what we need to adjust. So before we adjust that, we need to put our pressure plate in place. We do not put our clutch pancake bearing in for the adjustment. So we first put the pressure plate on, then we're going to install our springs, and I'm going to stagger these since they're different colors, like so, because each one of these colors is a different amount of tension, so we want to make them even. Now I'm going to run these in with the impact just to run them in. I'm going to start one of them, come down here, get this one started. And they want you to run them in little by little. I'm just going to get them all started. And now we should be good to run them all the way down. If you are using an impact, it's a good idea to take your time. These Milwaukees are awesome because you can turn down the amount of power that they have and make it so that you're a lot less likely to break one of these. I have a good feel for these, so I'm okay doing this. If you don't have a good feel for them, I recommend doing this by hand. Now we have this little anodized blue flathead screw. This is the lock for that internal billet ring. And we're just gonna push in, twist, and then come back out. Now that billet ring is unlocked and we can spin it. And what we want to do is go counterclockwise, which is going to raise it higher and higher until we brush up against our pressure plate. So we're just going to go until we feel a little bit of friction on the bottom of our pressure plate. Okay, I think that's about it. Now that we have that up against the pressure plate, we're going to take our springs off. Take the pressure plate off. I'm going to clean a little spot here on our pressure plate, or our inner hub, and our locking ring. And Rekluse actually includes a little marker here. What we're going to do is just basically strike this so that we can see exactly where we are. And we're going to turn this one full turn counterclockwise. So just follow your little hash mark there. So that's one full turn. And then if you see these little half moons, now we're going to turn it clockwise, 2 little half moons. So we have 1, 2, and we should be at a good baseline for the internal adjustment. Now we'll lock the adjusting ring. We're going to push down. I'm going to make sure everything's lined up. and twist quarter turn. And now it's locked in place so that won't move. Now we can kind of resume like a normal clutch pack. We have our clutch pusher rod before I put this in. Let's put our actuation arm in. We'll come around the other side for that. You want to make sure you got grease on the inner lip of your seal. Just gently push this in place. Don't want to roll the lip. And that literally just slides down like so. Now we can slide in our push rod. It doesn't go in any particular orientation. It just drops in place. And then we have our clutch pusher that goes on top. We're going to put a little bearing in place, put a little bit of lube on here. And then we've got this little pancake bearing. We've got a brand new one right from Partzilla. And then we have a washer that goes on top. Oh, one of our steels must have come off when we pulled the pressure plate off. Let's put that in place. And we can put our pressure plate back on. Load up our springs. Again, staggering these so they're alternating colors. Now we'll run these in again. And then we're going to torque these to 9 foot-pounds. Since it's wanting to roll, we're going to put our tie rod in there. And we might have to hold this inner clutch too. All right, pull this out. Oh man, we're almost ready to put on that clutch cover. We have a small duct that's going to go right here, and there's a O-ring that goes on there. You want to use a freshie, put a little bit of lubricant on there. Then we've got 2 dowel pins. We're going to put some anti-seize on them. One goes up here, and the second one goes down here. Then we've got our last bottom end gasket. Going to grease it up. Now we'll go ahead and hang this on our dowel pins. Now we're going to go ahead and put on our clutch cover. I've already rebuilt the water pump. It's a pretty easy job to do. If you do need to do it, I would go ahead and just look in the service manual. If you got this far, I got faith in you. You can do it. You also want to put some lubricant on the seal for the Kickstarter. We're just going to slowly walk this on, get the dowel pins lined up, and then you want to get the water pump lined up also. There we go. Nice and flush. We've got 3 longer bolts that go in the center here. A cable stay that goes back here. A cable router that goes up here. Then we've got 2 longer bolts. One goes here and another one goes here. And the rest of these are all the same length. And I'm putting anti-seize on all of these. I'm going to run these in with the impact. I'm not going to tighten them. This is just to save some time. And we'll go in a crisscross pattern. And then these will get torqued to 9 foot-pounds, and we'll go in a crisscross pattern. Now Honda calls for 9 foot-pounds on these. Some of them I just feel like they're going to strip out if I keep going. So typically with case bolts, I'm usually at 6.5 to 7.5. So for tightening these down, even though the manual says 9, just per my recommendation, I would probably do 7.5 foot-pounds on all of the 8mm bolts on this engine. But the service manual does call for 9 foot-pounds, specifically on the bolts with the wider flanges, which you can see on the right side here, and then the ones with the smaller flanges, it calls for 7 foot-pounds. So they both have the same size bolt though, it's just different size head. So I would lean towards just going 7.5 for all of them. Oh man, we're about to put that clutch cover on. Got a brand new O-ring on there, put some grease on it, and just make sure that O-ring does not pop out of place. Just want to keep an eye on it as you put this on. Oh, dude. There is 1 long bolt that goes up here, and the rest of the hardware is all the same size. I'm going to torque these to 7.5. Man, are we getting close. We're going to put our water pump cover on. There are 2 tiny dowels that go in place here. Got a little bit of anti-seize on those. Here's our water pump cover. We've got a brand new O-ring on the back. Put some grease on it. Pop this in place. All of our hardware is the same size here. This one does get a fresh crush washer, the one that goes on the bottom. I torque these to 7.5 foot-pounds. And this one I'm just going to go to snug since there's the crush washer. Oh, we're there. Down here we've got a weep hole bolt that gets a brand new crush washer. I'm going to snug this down to 6 foot-pounds. And then we've got an inspection window that goes right here. This does get an O-ring on the back. And I'm just going to snug this down. Okay. And then we've got a drain bolt. Got a brand new crush washer on it. That's going to go right here. I'm going to tighten this to 13.5 foot-pounds. The last thing for our clutch cover is the oil plug. Got a brand new O-ring on this with a little bit of oil on it. And the clutch side is done. We're going to move into our top end. We've got our piston right here. This is a CP Carrillo piston, so depending on what brand you have or if you're using an OEM piston, it might look a little bit different than this. But for the most part, the setup of a piston is going to be pretty much the same. You want to check and make sure that your piston rings have the proper gap. To do that, you're going to check your ring end gap. I will have in the description below a link to another video of mine where I show how to do ring end gap. It's very, very easy to measure. Now, I've already checked that on this engine, so we're just going to go ahead and install these rings. We're going to start with the, let's do the oil expander actually. So for the oil rings, we've got 2 very thin rings, and then the wavy one is the oil expander. So the expander is going to go on first, and that's going to go in the lowest groove on our piston. Just going to get that in place all the way around, and you want to make sure that the ends don't butt up against each other. So if you look, or you want them to butt up against each other, you don't want them to overlap. So if I can find the end right here, if you see how they look, they're butted up against each other. They can overlap, and then that's what you don't want. So just double check that and make sure you're good to go there. Then we have 2 oil rings. These are actually stuck together. These are very thin. You want to be careful not to destroy them. And we're going to stagger them at 120 degrees according to the service manual. So we'll have, when these 2 rings, if I can pick this dang thing up. Are you serious? What the hell? These 2 rings, we're going to have the ends staggered about like that once they're on the piston. So one will go below the expander and one will go above the expander. Just take your time putting these in. If you haven't done this before, it can be a little frustrating. Okay, the lower one is in place. They don't have to be exactly 120 degrees. I've got my gap right about here, so we're going to put the one on top, and that gap will be about over here. Oops. All right, the oil rings are in place, and again, just double checking, making sure that the end is not overlapping. And this one looks good. Now we're going to put the second ring in place, and you can see it has a marking right there. Typically with piston rings, if there's a marking, that side faces upward. On the underside, you can actually see this has an oil scraper that faces downward. So again, that number is going to face upward, and this is going to go in the middle gap. I'm just going to roll it over the top and fit it into our groove. Okay. Second ring is in place. Now I'm going to put the gap to that second ring towards the front of the piston with the gap right about here, and then the top ring, the gap is going to be right about here. And to identify the front of your piston, typically there's an arrow on it, or you might have a dot. Now for this CP piston, there is no dot or anything. Not a problem. Just look at your cutouts for the valves. Your exhaust valves are going to be smaller than your intake valves. So you can see the cutouts are smaller on this side. So that's your exhaust side, which is going to be forward. So right here is where that gap goes. And then we're going to put our top ring in place. And again, just like the second ring, you can see there's a little marking where it says N200. That's going to face upwards. And we're going to do the same thing. Just get it in the groove. And walk the ring in place. And put our gap right about there. So our piston is all ringed up. Now we're going to do the incredibly annoying task of putting our piston clips in. Now actually this usually isn't that bad, but these CP Carrillo ones, if you've got one of these aftermarket pistons, they're known for not being the easiest because they're really, really strong. So I'm going to go ahead and put the one on the left side of our piston. So this is the front of the piston. Again, look for the smaller cups. That's our exhaust side. And we're going to go to the left side. And the reason I'm doing that is because when we put the piston in place, then we'll only have to fight with one of these while it's on the engine. It's a little bit easier when the piston's just kind of out on the bench. And I'm doing the exhaust side by preference on the, if we did the, or the left side rather. If we did the right side first, on this side, it's a little bit more difficult to put the clip in because as you can see, we've got the cam chain guide and everything over there. On the right side, we've got a little bit more space. I highly recommend putting your safety specs on for this because these things can fly out and hit you directly in the eye. I've actually had that happen before. Now before we put the clip in, just as a rule of thumb, you want to leave the opening facing upward or downward. That's to prevent, if you have it on the side, believe it or not, the up and down force of the piston can actually collapse the clip and it can fall out. I've never actually heard of that happening except on like super high RPM performance engines, but for something like this, and especially with these CP super stiff rings, probably won't be an issue, just something to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and push this in, and we're going to try the spinning method. Dude, these things are super tight. Okay. And let's just get that in there. Bastard. Okay, the bottom part is in, and then we're just gonna push on through the back. I'm actually gonna put my finger over this, risking stabbing my finger, but we don't want the clip to fly out or we'll never find it. So I'm just pushing very, very gently. Oh, we got it. We got it. That wasn't that bad, but you can see how tight that is, and fighting it on the engine can really be a pain in the ass. Just want to double check, make sure that it's completely in the groove. You do not want these things flying out. All right, now let's go over to our engine and pull the slack out of our cam chain so it doesn't bind up. We're going to pull our crank up as high as it can go, so we've got as much space as we can to work with. And then I'm going to take a rag here and stuff it in our crank. This is so that if we drop that little clip, it doesn't go down into our crankcase, because that could be a real nightmare. Yeah, another ask me how I know. Okay, that should be good. Now we're going to take our wrist pin and put a little bit of assembly lube on it. And I'm going to get this started in the piston on the side that we did not put our clip in. These are tight tolerances, so you might have to work it in there. There we go. And you want to make sure that you're putting the front of the piston towards the front of the engine. And again, if you weren't paying attention, the smaller little crescents are going to be your exhaust side, and that's going to be the front of your piston, or you may have a dot or an arrow. Just make sure you have it in the correct orientation. We will drop this down over our connecting rod. When it's lined up, push our pin through. Okay, and now for the real fun, getting the clip in on this side. Let's see if I can do this so you guys can see, and you know, just make it even more difficult for myself. But I love doing this. I love making videos for you guys. Oh shit. See right there, that would have gone right into the case. And I would have been very mad. There we go. Bastard. And then just make sure that it's all the way in that groove. This one looks good. Now we can pull this rag out of here. We've got 2 dowel pins. Put some anti-seize on those. One goes on this front stud, and then the second one goes back here on this stud. And then there's a little water duct. It's a little aluminum sleeve that goes right there. And then we'll put our base gasket in place. This is a metal Cometic gasket. We're going to put this on dry. Just want to make sure everything is lined up. And we'll drop this in place. You got to get your cam chain guide through there, and also your cam chain. All right. Getting ready to put our cylinder in place. Before we do that, we're going to take a little bit of motor oil and put it on the skirts of our piston, and just all around it, basically getting it lubed up. It's going to make it go in the cylinder a little bit easier, and so that we don't have a dry engine on first startup. And now is a good time to check all of your ring end gaps, because we were just messing around with all of the piston clips and stuff, and the chances are it moved around a little bit, so just make sure these are lined up. And then we've got our Cylinder Works 480 big bore cylinder. We're also going to take some oil and put it on the cylinder, just all around the walls and the skirts. Make sure it's good and coated. All right, we're going to drop this in place and compress our rings as we do so. And make sure your cam chain slider is inside the cylinder. And we're just going to line this up. And the other thing that can help is a little flat blade screwdriver, just to help encourage the piston rings into place. And just be very gentle and work your way around. You'll get it, don't worry. It literally says in the service manual to use your fingers to compress the rings. It can just be a pain in the ass, and this could also be one of those deals where, depending on the brand of piston, one might be more difficult than the other. Oh, here we go. This was one of the more difficult ones, but you want to take your time with that because you wind up destroying your rings if you rush that and force it on there. We're going to take our cam chain, and I can actually just push it right here in the middle. If you want, you can pull it up on the side of your cylinder. And we'll just slowly slide this down the piston. Again, not forcing anything. All right. Looking good. I'm going to use a magnet to get our cam chain. Just make sure that's not binding up in there. And we've just got to get this down on our cylinder dowels. Might need a little bit of encouragement. Just tap it down with a mallet. Just making sure that we don't have any blockages. I think we just have some tight cylinder dowels. Now in this engine in particular, I'm not able to get the cylinder to stay completely flush. It seems like the cylinder dowels are so tight on this one, it's actually holding it up a little bit. Now when we put the cylinder head on, it should tighten everything down okay. But I did want to mention that typically when you tap down on your cylinder with the mallet, it should go flush without having to pull it down. Now I spun my engine over and everything seems to be moving freely, and I double checked it. There's nothing interfering. So if you do have the same thing going on, just make sure that it's just the cylinder dowels that are really tight and it's not something else holding it up. So in this case, I'm okay running it. There's a small M6 that goes here. I'm just gonna run this down until it's flush. You can see it pulls it right down. There's almost like a little bit of spring in the cylinder dowels, and it's pulling it up just a little bit just on this one side. I'm not going to tighten this down just yet. Let's go ahead and do our cylinder head, and then we'll tighten this down later. Now we have another cam chain slider that goes in place. There is a little bump right here. These two little pegs, they go right in this groove in your cylinder. The longer portion is going to go in first. So we're going to take our cam chain, just get the slack out of it, make sure that it's not bound up or anything like that. Put in our cam chain slider, just like so. We've got two cylinder dowels. Gonna put some anti-seize on them. We've got one that goes back here, and a second one that goes up here. Now we can put our cylinder head gasket in place. This goes on dry, just like with the base gasket. We're gonna line it up with our cam chain slider and take our cam chain, run it through, and just work our way down till it's on those cylinder dowels, like so. Before you go any further, it's a good idea to roll your engine over, make sure that nothing's bound up. We're going to keep tension on our timing chain, and I've got the kicker in place. It can be kind of cumbersome on the bench, but you can see we're rolling over nice and smooth, so we're ready to move forward. Now we're going to put our cylinder head on. I'm not going to show how to install the valves, but in the description below in the chapters, I will have a link to another video where I show how to install the valves. This is also a ported head that's done by OCP. The work is absolutely excellent. If you're looking to get port work done, I'll have the information to get to OCP on the screen and also in the description below. So let's go ahead and install our cylinder head. We're going to get our cam chain up here. It's going to be a little cumbersome. We're going to feed our cam chain through the cylinder head along with the cam chain guides. And get this up here. And we just need to fish these cam chain guides and our studs into the cylinder. Just kind of take our time. There it goes. Boom, no problem. I'm going to take this magnet and put it through our cam chain just so it doesn't drop through. Take our mallet. And we are good and flush. Now we've got our 4 cylinder studs that pop through the head. We've got washers and nuts that go on here. The manual calls for a little bit of oil on the washers and on the threads for the studs. So I've already gone ahead and oiled mine. Just pop these in place. Then we'll put our nuts in place. Now we're going to tighten these down to 40 foot-pounds in a couple stages. We're going to do 20 foot-pounds, and then we're going to go right to 40 foot-pounds, and we'll go in a crisscross pattern. So we're going to go right to 20, and tightening on the bench can be a little bit of a pain in the ass if you don't have a buddy to hold the engine because it wants to spin around. So we're going to use what's called the swing arm method, and we're just going to go right through where the swing arm bolt goes with an extension, and that's going to give us some leverage from the engine spinning. We'll go up here. You want to grab your torque wrench at the handle. If you grab anywhere else, you're actually changing the torque value. And we're going to see if we can go ahead and get this torque down without this engine spinning off the bench. Okay, there's 20 there. $20 there, 20 there, 20 there. Now we're going to bump it up to 40 foot-pounds. There's 40 right there. It's actually a little easier not using the swing arm method, at least on this particular engine. Okay. There's 40 there. I'm just going to go around, make sure that these are all good. Okay. Good. Good. All right. It can be a little difficult. If you have a buddy to hold the engine, that can definitely help working on the engine when you don't have an engine stand. You just gotta get creative sometimes. Got the job done though. Then in the front we have two 8mm bolts. I'm gonna torque these down to 7.5 foot-pounds. If you guys remember this third one down here, we can tighten it now. All right. Now we're going to put our cam holder in place. Now mine is already somewhat assembled. If you want to remove the cam, it is removable. If you come to the front here, you can see there is a snap ring. You take that snap ring off. Then if you come to this side, the auto decompression mechanism is over here. You remove this bolt, and then this entire back piece comes off, and the cam can be pushed through. I believe it has to be tapped through, and it comes out with the bearing. On this side, we have our rocker arm. If you want to remove that, there is a little clip in here, like a piston clip. You can see the little cutaway there. You can get a screwdriver in there and dig out that little clip, and then you'll get a shaft that slides out, and then your rocker arm is removable. We will put the decompression arm together. This is the decompression arm. It's a two-piece system. We've got the one arm here and then another arm here with a roller. Now, there is no actual dimple or anything that shows how this should be aligned. In the service manual, it literally just says to make them straight. And because these are curved, it can be a little confusing. So this is how they go. Now, it's going to go right through here, and it can be a little cumbersome. So we have a spring right here. This is going to go on the side with the roller arm. There's a little U-shaped catch. We're going to put that on like so. Now the easiest way that I found to get this on here, because it's kind of a pain in the ass, is to get this tang. We're going to get it right in front of the catch there and just kind of push this in place about where it's supposed to go. Then we're going to come in from the other side with our other arm and get it in just a little bit until where the splines are. And we're going to line this up till it's about where it needs to go. Right about there, and it snaps into place. And then you've got your spring tension. You got to be careful it doesn't freaking pop off. Then we've got a special nut that's going to go in place. And then just double check, make sure that these two pieces are in a straight line. Then this nut gets torqued to 16 foot-pounds. Then there's a special locking E-clip that goes on there. You can use a pair of snap ring pliers, and you'll have to line it up so that it fits into one of the little grooves in the nut. You can see how that goes on there. Then on the bottom, we've got a spot for two shim buckets. These will just slide in place. Now I've already shimmed my valves, so we're going to go ahead and put the shims in the top of our valve springs. Now we can put the cam holder in place. There are two dowel pins on the bottom, and we're going to face it with the rocker arm facing towards the exhaust. So it's going to go like so. Let's see if we can get our cam chain out of the way. Just like that. We've got 4 bolts that go in the top. There are longer ones and shorter ones. The longer ones go on the exhaust side, shorter ones on the intake side. And these get torqued to 10 foot-pounds. Now let's spin the engine around to our clutch side. Got our little inspection port here. We're going to pull this plug out, and now we have access to the bolt that we can rotate the crank. Now I'm going to put tension on the cam chain, and we're going to rotate clockwise until there's a small mark on our sprocket, and we want that to be lined up with a little arrow on the case. It might be difficult to get you guys in here to see, but there's a little punch mark on our gear. There it is right there. We just want that to be lined up with our case. There it is right there, guys, on the gear. And you just want it to line up with the arrow like so. Now we'll come back to the top of the engine here. I've got the bolts for our cam chain gear, and we're just going to put a little bit of high temperature, high strength thread lock. And we're going to put our gear in place like so. There's a rounded portion and a portion that's sunken. The sunken portion faces out. The other way you can tell is the little strike marks on either side, and you want them to line up with the little arrows on the cam holder. So we're going to see if we can get this lined up, get all the slack out of our cam chain, and we're going to see where are those marks. About like so. It's actually pretty close. Right like that. It looks like they're lined up perfectly on both sides. And then we can spin the cam so that it lines up with the bolt holes. Spin these in place. Now we can hold the crank from spinning over here, and that'll allow us to tighten these to 14 foot-pounds. All right, now we can put our plug back in place, and I'm just going to snug this up by hand. Now we're going to install our cam chain tensioner. I've got a brand new gasket in place. There is a tool that depresses the plunger and holds it in place. You don't need it though. You just need a little flathead screwdriver. And you see as we spin this, it's going to pull the plunger in. Right about there, it's maxed out. And you can actually just hold it with your hand and put our gasket on here and get that in place. Oh, our damn engine's rocking here. Once you get that in place like so, you can take your bolts and get these lined up. I'm going to keep the plunger depressed until we have these bolts brought all the way in. Okay, they're snug, and now we can take the tension off of our cam chain tensioner. I'm going to tighten these to 7.5 foot-pounds. And then on the back, we have a small bolt with a crush washer. I'm going to put a new crush washer on there and spin this in place. I'm just going to snug this down. Guys, we are getting really close to finishing this engine up. We're going to put our thermostat in place with the bleed hole facing upward. Then we've got our thermostat cover. There is an O-ring that goes on the back. You want to put a fresh one on there with a little bit of grease. And this will just go in place. Got a little bit of anti-seize on all of the hardware for this. I'm going to torque these down to 7 foot-pounds. Then I've got a brand new temperature sensor to go right back here. I'm going to put a little bit of thread sealant on the threads. We'll just thread this in place. This gets torqued to 7 foot-pounds. Should be good. Now we're going to put our cam cover on. We've got a fresh gasket in here that's going to go right around our spark plug tube. And then there's also a rubber gasket around the outside. I put a little bit of grease on this. That's going to help it stay in place a little bit, but it's a little bit difficult to keep that in place. We're just going to have to take our time. And then there's a plate up here that's got 2 bolts in it. That generally will not have been removed, but just in case, that's where it goes. We're going to try to hold this gasket in place as we guide this onto our head and just kind of work that spark plug gasket over the spark plug tube. It looks like we're pretty much lined up. Just want to make sure that gasket didn't pop out of its place. Oh, dude, this thing looks awesome. Then we've got 3 bolts. They all get these rubber washers. There is a grooved side that's rubber and the top is metal. The metal portion faces up and it'll slide over these bolts and kind of clips in place like so. Got a little bit of anti-seize on all of these. And the one in the back is a little bit shorter. We're going to torque these down to 7 foot-pounds. And finally, we're going to get a fresh spark plug, set the gap to 1 millimeter, put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. I'm going to drop this in place. This will get tightened to 17 foot-pounds. And with that, my friends, you built yourself a TRX450R engine. Good job. Thanks for watching my video. If this video helped you with your engine assembly in any way, shape, or form, please give the video a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot, and also consider subscribing for more videos like this. And like I said before, there's an entire series showing the restoration of this 450R. It's an awesome series, and I highly recommend you check it out. One thing I always like to say in my tutorial videos is to take your time when building your engine. A lot of times things just don't go together as smoothly as they appear in this video. Anybody can do this stuff. It's just a matter of double checking your work and making sure everything is good to go. I love all you guys. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.